hopes is that we will be bigger and better. We will include children. We will make a conference not just for adults, but we will bring young children from primary age to senior age to university together. But it shouldn't just be a separate conference, because the youth are our future and they have so many things to teach us too.
So my hope is that the young people are involving a lot in shaping the world that we want to have in the future. And from all sorts, from the Black Lives Matter movements, for standing up for refugee rights, and all these movements of young people mobilizing and getting together to make the world a more welcoming place, particularly for people who are forced to flee their homes.
My hopes for 2022 are that we will come out from this pandemic being more considerate, more collaborative, having more ability to reconcile differences. As we've heard from the Archbishop this morning, I think the pandemic has been a real period of trauma and crisis for a lot of people, and actually we do need to look at some of the people who live on the edges of our economy, of our society, and how we make them part of our of the fabric and of the decision making. So I hope that we will do that.
I guess my hope is that we would begin to learn to listen to each other. I think that true international collaboration will of course arise out of a shared sense of crisis, and so the global climate crisis is clearly something which few people would now deny, and so I think the sense of a shared challenge hopefully will bring a shared commitment.
I am hopeful and always have been. In communities there has been too many tensions, mainly racial or divisions, diversity. One of the issues I said, perhaps some people might remember, when I was Lord Mayor, I changed the slogan from saying, well, let's celebrate diversity. And I changed the slogan, let's celebrate unity in diversity. So my belief is bringing the communities together. There are more communities, they fight among themselves more for their share. And my view is we can work together, make something better. So I hope Coventry culture develops in that positive way. That's my hope.
I hope that we're going to take much greater steps towards moving out of COVID all around the world, not just in this country, so that we can kind of get our economies back on track and get life back to normal again. But I also hope we can see a huge change in the leadership around climate change, and so I'm hoping we'll see really massive commitments to combating climate change and reducing CO2 emissions.
For 2022, I hope very much for a renewal of ideas of forgiveness. Not just kindness, but of the ability for people to begin to learn afresh how to disagree well.
2022, I hope, is going to be a really exciting year for the West Midlands. Of course, we've had City of Culture in Coventry in 21, that carries on, but 22 is another big year with the Commonwealth Games under the brand of Birmingham, but of course it's right across the West Midlands, from Cannock to Leamington and just about everywhere in between. But it's what it stands for is what really matters to me. It stands for communities all coming together, showing this place off as one Commonwealth society. And we've got just a brilliant opportunity to show to the world that as we recover from the pandemic, that this is a place where genuinely those communities that have come from all over the world can thrive together. So it's an exciting moment in our history.
Well, first, of course, always peace. Peace internationally, peace nationally, that we are a stable, united kingdom. Above all, that there's peace in Ireland. Also, peace at home, so my wife doesn't tell me off too much, because she's always right and I'm always wrong.
What I worry about in 2022 is that British politics will continue to be as divided and as embittered as it is at the moment, and that we will find ourselves in an increasingly serious disagreement with the EU that could come to the point where it's affecting our trade and therefore the life and well-being of many people in this country. I would like to see us building back into a more productive, cooperative relationship with our European neighbours, freeing up energy to tackle the even more serious problems that are out there in the world. And I want to avoid Britain being sucked into an endless series of disagreements and divisiveness with European countries.
Well, I mean, my fears for 2030 are that we're not going to get there, but we need to get started on it. And I suppose my fears for 2022 are that we still continue in this vein of populism, of countries isolating themselves from other countries, of non-cooperation, that we need to build these alliances. And you know, maybe we're making a bit of progress on that. In Glasgow at the moment, you know, the announcement between the US and China that they're going to cooperate on certain climate issues and coal, that's good. You know, if countries can start talking about this, they can talk about other things too. So we've got to start making progress. By next year would be great, but in the medium term, I'm optimistic.
My fears are that people will continue to be complacent about the fact that our young people do not feel engaged in the democratic voting process. We seem to be happy with the fact that the number of people under the age of 30 who vote is 25% lower than the number of people over the age of 60. We will never tackle the big challenges that we face, climate change amongst them, health inequalities, wealth inequalities, until we start to tackle the fact that young people do not take part in our democratic processes.
My fears would be a continued descent into hostility of shouting at each other from the trenches of social media especially.
Would be that I'm wrong and that we will simply look to our own interests, particularly in the light of the greatest threat that the world has seen perhaps forever. And my greatest hope is that we will actually begin to make the sacrifices at an individual or a national level which will really begin to take us forward.
So I'm going to wrap them up by telling you about my best friend. My best friend is my grandson, who's 10, and next year he'll be 11, and the year after that he'll be 12. And I express through his friendship all the worries I have and all the joy I have. So the joy is he's growing into an amazing guy, an amazing mature friend who will continue to swap football stories, and I'll watch his development with great pleasure. The fears, I don't have to remind you of the challenges facing our climate and the future world. So when he's my age, what sort of world will it be? And that does worry me, not to the extent that it gets between us in our relationship, but when I see him and I meet him and we play together, I'm always really recognizing that that's a challenge that he'll face.